God.
Good evening and welcome to my presentation about the globally responsible business. Today we are going to talk about it in a marketing point of view, and we're going to discuss about the communication through the value chain. Yes, here we can see the 6 parts of the value chain, from inputs to consumption. I wanted to talk about this because in the modern business, companies are responsible for the whole supply chain, whole value chain of the product. I wanted to divide this thing to internal and external stakeholders. So first 3 parts, from input to logistics, are external holders, processing is the internal one, and then distribution and consumption also the external stakeholders. The topics that I wanted to mention today are the strong role of media and the increased customer awareness. These 2 will lead to fast and strong impact, which we'll see in the example at the very last slide. Can we move to external stakeholders? So when the company is communicating with the external stakeholders, for example, raw materials, production and logistics, they need to consider the responsible sourcing of the suppliers. So they need to do their background work about the suppliers, so there's not going to be surprises. Suppliers' actions need to be aligned with the company values, which is very important to avoid scandals. If company sees the misbehavior in the responsible business of the suppliers, they need to demand change. Many of these companies, raw materials and productions, are located in the developing countries, so they might not have enough education or resources to develop their working and environmental conditions. So company could start by providing these 2 resources for the suppliers. Supervision is extremely important in this group because suppliers might say that they are acting aligned with company values, but they are not, which will lead scandals when the consumer activists or activist groups are studying the suppliers. Continuous improvement is very important in this section because the standards are evolving and the customer needs are changing constantly. From this part we can remember scandals like natural resources exploitation in developing countries, poor working conditions in Foxconn plant, or shipping companies leaking oil to the oceans. Then we can move to the processing part, which is in this case the internal stakeholder, so the company itself. So when the senior executives are planning company's strategy and values, then they need to be communicated from top to bottom. The full engagement of the whole company. If the company doesn't constantly act through its values, it can have a serious impact on its value. Company need to have a clear roadmap of the goals. They can be communicated to external stakeholder groups via annual CSR report, which is a good way to communicate the company values. And also in this part, the continuous improvement is very important because of the changing environmental condition and the consumer needs. Then we can move to the distribution part. Thanks. Here, company needs to provide enough information for distributors, wholesalers and retailers. They need to, it's better to be proactive than reactive for the changes. For example, in Finland we might remember the energy drink case where companies, retailers stopped selling energy drinks to kids under 15 years old. So in this case, companies can be proactive and say that their product is not recommended for children under 15 years old, and that way they can avoid the scandals or bad image of their morally unjustified actions, which are completely in gray area according to law. here the last part is to plan how to develop the cooperation with the distributors. So companies can have marketing campaigns with distributors to communicate their values through the distributors to end consumer. And now when we have talked about the 5 first steps of the value chain, we can move the last part, which is the consumer side. Yes, here the education of the consumer is the most important. Company can educate customers with the product information, how to use it right to avoid accidents, but also in the environmental aspects like renewable plastic bags at the retail stores. Support is also important. When customers have problems, they need to be solved. So company needs to support them with the active communication that doesn't take too long with email, phone or social media sites. Then the last part, which is important now when we have tons of electronics at our home, the disposal of the product. For example, the smartphones have many different kind of metals that are not that can harm environment. So it's really important to collect gold and other metals from the products. And this can be done by that customers can return old products to retailers that ship them the original producer for recycling purposes. And now in the last slide we can see how strong and fast impact social media and media can have on company valuation. You might remember United Airlines case from April 2017, where security officers tracked one passenger out of the plane, and the next day $255 million were swiped off from the United Airlines valuation. So when the company communicates their values through the whole value chain, we can avoid this kind of accidents that affect company image and their valuation in stock. I want to thank you for your time and concentration, and if you have anything to ask, you can submit questions to the comment section here. I will post the links, the references also in the comment section. Thanks.
Yeah!